Hello y'all. In this video we're going to show you how to put together your sword kit. So what's going to come in the kit, in the box, is you're going to have this core, you're going to have a bag with all your pommel pieces, you're going to have 2 bits for your blade, plus a stabby tip, and a cover if you ordered one with it. So things you will need on top of this, outside of the raw materials that I've given you, is you're going to need some sort of glue to hold all this together. Whether you use Super 77 spray, Gorilla Glue, it doesn't really matter as long as it's super and sticky. I'm a big fan of the DAP contact cement. You can get a little bottle like this, costs next to nothing, in order to keep stuff connected, because this tends to last longer. In my opinion, I've never had an issue with this. Unlike the other ones, they eventually will go out, but this one will last almost twice as long as the other, so it's definitely worth getting yourself one of these. So the first thing, another optional items you're going to also want to get your hands on, one of them you'll need, the others are optional, is double-sided carpet tape. This one's optional. I like to attach my pommel with it because it just makes life a whole lot easier, especially when you're mass producing things. It's a lot better than waiting for DAP to slowly get tacky with your glue. A roll of athletic tape, or hockey tape in this case. Hockey tape's preferred. You're going to need one of these, and a roll of duct tape. These are really the only things you need. If you're feeling extra fancy and want to do what I do, you'll also want to get yourself some fiberglass strapping tape to help secure your pommel in place. It's not needed, but it will help your weapon last a lot longer from all the abuse you're going to put your pommel through. So first thing we want to do is connect the pommel. So you got 4 pieces here. Got a little circle, smaller strip, and then a bigger circle and a larger strip. We're going to start out with the small strip. What we're going to do is we're going to either tape it, or you can use your glue to attach it right to the end and wrap it around here, right, so it's flush with the bottom of your weapon. But I'm going to use double-sided tape because it's quicker and easier, but it is an extra expense that you don't need to spend. This single small can of DAP will do everything for you. You can probably get even 2 swords out of it without having to worry about anything. So let's put this on. Come on, everybody. Take off the double-sided tape part. And make sure it's nice and flush with the top. Gonna wrap it around the edge there. Squeeze it in place. That is part 1 of your pommel. Part 2, I do the exact same thing. You can use DAP. I'm gonna use the tape. Off the other end of it. Come on there, Charlie. This is always the difficult part. There we go. Clean up your trash when you go. I'm going to stick it right on the top, so it should be somewhat-ish flush with your circle. If it's not exact, that does not matter, because you're going to cover it up and no one will know that you didn't make a perfect cut. Then we take the longer strip. Again, we're going to glue or tape that onto the bottom. There, and this is going to go over top of both, so it's going to be flush here. so everything is nice and flush with the top. There we go. And then lastly, we take a large piece and we tape it on top of that. Alright, this next step we're going to do is optional. I would recommend it, but it also depends on how you fight. If you're someone like me that kind of fights with my pinky around my pommel, and I'm very down here near the end, I put a lot of abuse to my pommel by doing that. So I want to keep my pommel secure so it doesn't rip off or get all wonky on me. You can either do this with duct tape, or what's better is this fiberglass strapping tape, which rips a lot less easy. Let's try it. Here we are. Find the end. Go. We're going to stick a piece under the end of the pommel, about 4 to 6 inches down here. Nice and tight all the way down to the other side, and cut it off. Kind of squeeze down here so it stays in place. And we're not just kind of squeezing up, wanting everything connected. Turn it 90 degrees and do the exact same thing. So we're making a cross. Right down the center. Nice and tight going one way, tight down the other. So this will help keep my pommel in place. So it'll look like that at the end. So when you end up putting your rope in there, it kind of squeezes all this tape down, and then this pommel does not want to wiggle or move hardly any. Next step, you can use duct tape for this step, but I would strongly recommend using hockey tape or some sort of athletic cloth tape, because that'll make this weapon usable in other games outside of just Stronghold. For Stronghold, duct tape is fine. A lot of Stress Defense weapons have duct tape on the pommel, but if you want to keep it a little prettier and more usable for other games, you're going to want to cover your pommel in the tape. Whichever tape you choose to use is up to you, but the objective is to hide all of the foam so we don't see any of the tape or foam. Steps at the top, and I'm just going to spiral it all the way down. There we go. Perfect. And that is your completed pommel. The next step is where the glue is necessary. Now, a warning when using this glue, it's got a very strong smell, so unless you're in a nice ventilated garage like I am, or you're outside, it's even better. I would recommend using it there. Also, this stuff doesn't come out of your clothes real well at all. So my hoodie here is covered in little DAP stains because the stuff just kind of sinks into your clothes and doesn't wash out. So, next, gluing the blade. When you're gluing your blade, you're going to have this lovely groove here. You want to put glue in there as well as glue on the edges here. So we're going to take it and we're going to paint some glue here. You can't really use too much DAP. The more DAP you use, the heavier it'll get. And as you squeeze it together, the excess DAP will come out. But you can use too little. So you want to make sure everything is nicely coated. Should be next to no dry spots. A little here and there is not the end of the world. But if you want this to last you an eternity and a half, that's what we're gonna want to do. paint it on. Get some on the edge of the blade there. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't matter. As long as you get your blade connected, though. That is what matters. And that's one side done. What I like to do is I like to connect it all together, because this lovely pipe is going to fit nicely in that groove. All pretty like, right flush with the top. And I'm going to take the other side and place it where it belongs to try to share some of the DAP. In case I have too much, it'll go on the other piece. I'm going to kind of press, twist the handle, just to really spread it around. And I might, almost, not quite, almost had enough. So I don't really need to do the walls here, because I see they're good, but a little more in the groove is necessary. So glue those up. See a little dead spot on there. Again, the more DAP you use, the heavier your weapon will be, because you're adding more weight to it. But it is not a bad thing. You just don't want it swimming. Alright, that'll do. Press it on top, squeeze it, let whatever excess come out. If you don't want the excess flowing out, you can take a paper towel, just kind of wipe it down. There we go. And everything flush with the top of your weapon there. That is your blade glued on. Next step is where the duct tape comes in. So we're going to want to tape the bottom, just one layer. You're not trying to compress it, you just kind of nicely hold it in place. The very top and about a third of the way down your weapon, because that's where you're normally hitting people. You want to keep that nice and protected, because this is going to help with that. So I'm going to take the duct tape. I'm not going to compress the foam or anything. I'm just going to nice there. I want it connected firm, but I don't want it to compress anything. There we go. The edges, make it look nice. And I'll do the same thing that I did down here. Do the same with the top. So here, like 1 to 2 layers thick. Again, we're not compressing it, we're just laying it down and working with the extra. Fold this down all nice, pretty. That's that, and there we go, a third of the way down. And do the exact same thing. About there. It's not an exact science. There. You have about a third, bottom and top. Squeeze that down. Now go find your blade might kind of peel apart. If it does that and that annoys you, you can just wait until your DAP glue gets a little tacky. So which basically means you can stick your finger on it and the object will kind of float right up off your finger, but it's not completely dried. That's when it's tacky. You can stick it on, it'll stick in place. Next step is to attach your stabby tip, which is this little rectangular piece right here. So we're gonna open up a can of glue again, paint some on there. Now that I've done that, I'm gonna again share the wealth, see what I need to do, wipe off any extra on the top here. See a little pouring down off the edge. I don't really want that. I want the glue to go up here, so I'm gonna scrape it up. There we go. And that sits right up there, all nice and flush. Now for this, you can wait to get tacky. It takes like 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm going to do that. Let it set off. Gloves are another good thing. Otherwise the DAP kind of just sticks to your fingers unless you're really careful. Your first time doing it, probably wear gloves because you don't know quite. Being careful, I've done this enough that the glue doesn't bother me at all. But for those of you who have sensitive fingers and would rather not be dirty, gloves are an option. Alright, let's see what we got. Yeah, it's already getting a little more sticky. Just give it another second. Good. See? It's not coming off, it's going sideways, upside down. We're good to move on to the next step. It's not perfectly glued, like I can slide it around, but it's almost there, which is perfect. Alright, next step is you have this lovely seam here. Squeeze in place, because by the time we finish the rest of it, this got tacky, we can squeeze it all nicely in place there. And it should stick. We're going to take the tape, we're going to hide this seam, so we're going to start here with the duct tape, go all the way up, wrap around your stabby tip, and go all the way back down. This will also help keep your stabby tip in place as well, because this is the first thing that's going to want to pop off after we glue it. Doing it this ensures that happens a lot later than you might think. I'm gonna kind of squeeze it all the way down. So I'm squeezing and pressing the tape on the blade there. We're gonna do the same thing. Slide this where it belongs, pushing down on our stabby tip. Nice and tight. Boom. Squeeze and sort of press it in. We want to keep that gap closed for making sure that happens. That is that. We're going to do the same thing because this, again, this section here to here is where you end up hitting the most. You want to keep that pommel in place. So we're going to take another strip. Start about here-ish. Wrap it around the top there. There we go. Nice, tight. Pressing down, keeping everything connected. And this will help keep stabby tip nicely in place. The beauty of duct tape is that it's very malleable. So when you're hitting someone with the blade, the tape will kind of compress and go with it without actually ripping. Now you don't want to put tape down the whole line of it, otherwise it can cause it to hit a little hard, especially with the cover on it. But this little bit up here isn't the end of the world. If you're making one of the bats, then you will end up wanting to skin the whole thing just for extra protection, because that foam isn't quite as sturdy as this foam in order to keep it super light. So that is required, and it's not going to affect your hitting. But for the case of your sword here, that is it. That is your basically your completed sword. Another optional thing you can do, which I am going to do, is you can take some paracord, or you can just use your tape and wrap your handle. I'm going to go with yellow today. So I'm going to take my double-sided tape. You can just take a little bit of your athletic tape and just kind of start it on and move over, but not necessary. This part kind of a personal preference thing. You can wrap it with paracord, just your athletic tape. Some people will use that grip you get on tennis rackets or baseball bats. So use that to wrap it. It's really personal preference. I like paracord. I like the way it feels. It adds just enough extra thickness to this 1/2-inch core here that it suits my grip and the way I like to hold my weapon perfectly. So I just use 505 paracord and begin the wrapping. Oops, buddy. So when you're doing that, you want to start at the bottom. Get it nice and glued, nice and tight. Keep it going. Then I'm going to wrap it while kind of pulling and pushing down on my thumb here. Making sure there's no gaps, because I don't want gaps, because gaps will feel funny and make it look funny. I don't particularly want it to look cheap. There we go. Now we're getting to the part where there's that extra tape up here. We're going to compress it down to keep the pommel from moving. This is where I'm going to squeeze it and pull it as hard as I can to compress that tape. And I'm going to keep going all the way to the top here. Keep going, maybe put some extra on. Pull as tight as I can. Keep rolling up until I reach the top of the pommel, which is right there. I'll take X-Acto blade or your scissors or whatever. Time for a new blade on this thing. There we go. And connect it. Let me take my hockey tape. And since it matches this, I'm just going to take it. Tape around the end to keep this rope from unraveling for me. I tend to go about 3, maybe 4 layers thick so it stays on nicely. And I can do the same with the bottom. Go here. When you're doing the wrap, you want it to be kind of match the way you're wrapping the handle. Just help pull it in. Again, 3 and 4. Thump the dump. And ta-da! There is your completed sword. The only thing left to do is put on your cover, which can either be a sock, or we have fitted covers that we sell, or you can sew your own cover. Stockings work. The only problem though I've had with stockings is they work great, but you need like 3 or 4 depending on how thin the stocking is. And they compress to the point where sometimes if you need too many, it'll compress your sword to where now your sword's completely compressed and it doesn't feel like hitting anyone with foam. So yes. Well, that is it. That is your finished sword. Go out, give it a good 24 to 48 hours to dry so all the glue has time to set, and enjoy.